Hey, what's up everyone? Today I'm going to introduce you to swipe navigation. Now this is an alternative utility for gesture or swiping navigation. It is a great alternative to the LMT launcher, Pi control, and the default Android soft key navigation bar that is located on the bottom of most Android devices. So one particular positive with this specific utility is the fact that it will disable that nav bar, so you will get more display. You will also have less chance or less risk of screen burn-in on AMOLED units or displays, which is really great, especially for the Nexus 6, which is rumored, or a lot of people are having issues rather, with screen burn-ins. So take that into account. The only negative with this particular application is if you hand this device to somebody, they're not going to have a clue how to use it because there's no navigation bar or keys or anything that would indicate how to use it. Now, most ROMs, however, do have a quick setting tile that you can go in here and customize a nav bar quick disable enable. Otherwise, you have to go through the necessary method to enable it yourself or go into a guest login. So just be aware of that. There is also, I guess, one negative. It's more of a nitpick really, or at least it will be in your opinion maybe. And that is the fact that if you want to completely customize this particular utility, you will have to buy the Pro version. And what I mean by this is if you want to go in here and set a specific gesture to toggle an action, root action, shortcut, or application, as you can see here, you will have to buy the Pro version. Now, it's only under $2. It's not a big deal. And you will also need to buy that version in order to access the dock here on the screen, which you can set up pretty much anywhere you want to. And I'll go over that in just a moment. Now, if you aren't going to buy the full version, you will get the basic stock experience with soft keys. You're going to still have your home and back and recents. It's going to be the same basic setup, only you're going to use gestures instead of single tap actions like you would on a button-based system. It's also worth noting that this particular utility is pretty awesome because it is a one-step process. And what I mean by this is one step by swiping. So you don't have to initialize like with LMT or Pi controls. You have to initialize the actual launcher itself or the control, and then you press the action. So that's a two-step process in that means or that regards. So this is just a one-step process. It's very simple, it's quick, and very effective. Now, it is a two-step process in terms of the dock because you do have to launch the dock and then select the application or action. So anyway, that's a lot of information to take within 2 minutes, but that is how it works. And let's go ahead and dive into the actual specific settings and how it will actually maybe be beneficial to you on your Android device. So as you can see, there are single touch gestures. It's left, center, right, and then you have two edges on this display. I'll go ahead and show you that real quickly. You're going to see right here in the little colorized menu, you have your basic settings right here in the menu with the red. Then you have the other left and the right edge, which is green, and those are going to be specific launching with gestures as well. The blue is basically your gesture sensitivities you're going to see up here at the top. So before we get into that, I'm also going to explain the multi-touch gestures that you can set up. And this will be basically whatever you want to have it launch if you buy the Pro version. The defaults here are going to be obvious, what you see on the screen. I changed mine already, so I don't remember exactly what they are, but I have mine set up. So Google Voice is basically on two-touch gesture here on both sides. And then I have my Google Card view basically with two on the side here. But you can set that up to do pretty much anything you want with actions or applications, whatever you want. You'll see it right here that you can select pretty much anything you download or anything you use. So it's great stuff. It's very, very simple to set up. It's not very hard. It's anyone can do it really. And then in the actual settings for your gestures, you can set up a lot of different stuff, and it's really great and simple as well. It's not too hard. It's all well explained. They have detailed settings and information between each setting or particular submenu there. So you are going to have your sensitivity. What this basically means is that blue bar that I mentioned is going to be your sensitivity. So you can set this to super sensitive, or you can make it a little bit more difficult to trigger. But default is roughly right around in the middle, and you can change that up to pretty much anything you want. It's basically 70 all the way to 1. I wouldn't really recommend going all the way up or all the way down because that would be a little bit tricky in some cases. But you can play with it. It's trial and error, and it's going to be basically what you prefer. Everyone's different, and different strokes for different folks, whatever terminology you want to use. Gesture distance is basically almost the same thing, but you're basically going to change the trigger width. So if you want something relatively small, you can change your gesture distance to something ridiculously small, which barely means you barely have to touch the screen on the bottom there, or the left or right, which I'll show you later, in order to trigger your gesture. So you can change that up based on whatever you want. You can go ridiculously large to 280. So instead of really small triggers, you'll have to go and actually do some work. in order to get it to trigger. So you might like that if you touch your screen a lot or if you have bigger hands or whatever. Again, trial and error. You'll just have to find your sweet spot. I keep mine relatively in the middle, anywhere between 125 and in that ballpark. It keeps me pretty happy. It still takes a decent amount of triggering or gesture or swiping in order to activate. Now, the left and right edge is obviously, as I mentioned, the green area. And I like to keep mine roughly about 90 for the dock setup and just a little bit under 90 sometimes for the menu. And I have mine set up for the menu on the right. Basically what this is let's say you're in Google Maps and they have a menu up here in the top left corner. Sometimes that's a little bit tricky. You're using one hand to drive and you're using one hand to hold the phone. You don't really have, that distance to go sometimes, and it's just really awkward. You can get into an accident, whatever. So you can trigger that menu right there. Very simple. So one-handed use, you can just toggle it really quickly that way. That's the easiest way I can explain that for you. And you can change that trigger size. You can change that action. It doesn't have to be a menu action. You can change it to anything you want. It's completely up to your preference, which is great with this particular utility. Same thing goes with the dock. You can change it. You can put it on the other side if you want to, and the dock is completely customizable. You'll notice that the default is on the left of the display, but you can place it on top, bottom, left, or right. I just launched my system monitor there. But you can set it up any way you want. You can also set up those applications. We'll go into that in a minute. But you can also set your split distance, which is basically going to be the split between each gesture trigger. You can also color this particular panel, basically your dock, where your trigger is going to be. I don't know why you would do this unless, of course, you are just getting used to the actual application. So let's say, you're not really used to how this works and you want to know where that trigger area is. You can set it up that way just to kind of get you familiarized, maybe for the first couple hours or so. Otherwise, I would just leave it, basically transparent so you never see it, because you want to be able to see your display without any issues or screen burn-in, rather, with the AMOLED unit. But you can change that if you want to, if you like colors, whatever. Now, gesture side and portrait, as I mentioned, you can change it in gesture and landscape. You can change the bar, basically, or the trigger in different modes. Now, I like to keep mine on the bottom in both situations or in both orientations. You can change this to the right side if you want to, for whatever reason, if you prefer that to be triggered over there. Unfortunately, there is no left side, so be aware of that. This has been out for a while and they haven't changed it, so I don't believe it's going to be changed. But I like to keep mine on the bottom, so if I'm doing something, it's easy down there, just like the nav bar would be. Now, you guys can change this to the right side on the landscape if you want to, kind of like the stock experience soft key nav bar. So that will be up to you, but I actually really prefer and enjoy it to be on the bottom, basically keeping it kind of uniform. And, if I'm watching videos or media or playing a game, it's just really easy to toggle. But you can change that, like I mentioned, a couple different times. Now, there is vibration feedback, excuse me. There is vibration feedback. So if you have your phone in your pocket and you want to be aware that something's going on, your display activated or something went on, you'll be able to change the vibration there or feedback. Even if your display isn't off and you just prefer to have some form of feedback when you're using gestures, you can set that up. This goes all the way up to a value of 50, I do believe, which is pretty, that's a lot of feedback. It's very apparent. Dock actions, you can go up here with the little plus menu and you can add pretty much any actions, root actions, shortcuts, and applications. So you can get anything that you have installed on your device and you can customize that any way you want to, as you can see here. Now, they do have a little menu that you can trigger as well, and that is you can remove it, you can set an icon, you can change the icon, you can change the name as well. So if you want to rename your clock to something else, or if you have something like two different clocks, you can change it, to something else so you know which one's different. You can also move them up and prioritize them. Fortunately, you have to do it every time. You can't just drag it. I would like to see that feature maybe implemented if the developer's watching this video. Doubt it, but that would be nice because it's a little less work than going in here and moving it. It's a little tedious, So anyway, that's how that works. That's how you add, remove. Swipe over, you can get your dock settings, so you can completely customize that dock as well. Just like the gesture triggers, you can change the size of the icons. When you see the minimum here, it's going to say minimum, maximum. So you can change the way it looks here. Let's go ahead and trigger it. So the minimum is obviously how you see it now. The maximum is when you highlight it. So you can change those sizes. You have really ridiculous settings here. You can go all the way up to 420. What's up, stoners? You can go really ridiculous low as well, 70. So you can change that. Obviously, if you have a smaller display, it might need to be bigger. If you have a bigger display, you might have to change it up. So that's fine. tablets, whatever. Icon spacing and margins are included. You can change all of that information. You guys can figure that out. It's not too hard to determine what that does. Icon speed is the animation, so you can make it ridiculously slow. Fade in, fade out. The movements, it's pretty slow. You can make it ridiculously fast too, really, really snappy. I actually kind of like 100, but I leave it right in the middle. Technically, I leave it around 60. It's very fluid at 60. That's just what I prefer. Obviously, you can change it. Go in here and mess around with it. Icon size strength, margin strength. You have your background and starting and ending background colors, so you can change the fade in, I guess. And then you also have your text size. So you can change the text size. You can make it super small, super large, depending on your eyesight. If you have a hard time seeing the display or whatever, obviously, again, it will just depend on your screen size, DPI. But you have full customization there, as well as the color on the text and the text background color. The text background color, common sense, it's going to be the text color or the background color behind the text there. So depending on your application that's open or whatever it is overlaying in the background, you might want to change that color so it's a little bit easier to read. As you can see in black, it's not really going to be noticeable too much, but it's pretty well done with default colors. I don't have any problems or issues. Now, as I mentioned, you can change the dock anywhere on the screen, top, bottom, left, and right. So if I want to put it on the top and then navigate through the top, you can do so. So now it's like really, really fast. That's probably where you would want to slow it down a little bit. So just be aware of that. You can also place it on the bottom, as I mentioned, pretty much in both orientations, portrait, landscape. You can change that up to any way you want. I'm actually going to change this to the right side, but then that's kind of weird because the trigger's over here. But that's how that works. I'll probably swap my triggers later on, but for now, we'll just leave it the way it was default. But that's how swipe navigation works. There's not too much more to explain. It is going to have a little menu up here at the top. If you want to enable or disable the navigation, it will automatically take you or direct you to the accessibility where you can disable swipe navigation or enable it. And then you'll be back in business, or you'll be back to your NavBar or LMT or Pi controls or whatever you use. Now, if you want to disable the NavBar down there at the bottom, the soft keys, you will have the option here to hide the navigation bar if you don't want to manually edit the build prop file found in the system folder. If you're worried about that, you can do that through this program. It will require a full reboot, not a soft reboot, full reboot. And if you want to enable it again, it will have the option to re-enable the navigation bar if you already have it hidden. So everything's going to be through this application. It's very, very simple. And, everything is explained. This video will help you a little bit more. It's kind of like a preview if you didn't know about it. And hopefully you guys liked the video. Hopefully it was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them down below. I'll leave everything in the description. Just be aware that the free version is going to be pretty standard. You can't change too much except for the trigger settings, the gesture swiping. If you want to get customized or anything like that, you will have to buy the pro version, but it's under $2. It's just a simple little donate key. And that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next one.